Hey everyone, it's Jamison Cable of the Land Between the Meadows, Kentucky History Podcast. I just want to say thank you for your support and listening to this episode. For all the updates on our podcast and YouTube channel, youtube.com/Kentucky History Channel, like and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at KY History Pod. If you're enjoying the podcast, give us a good rating and review on Apple Podcasts or the podcast platform that you're listening to. If you're looking for ways to support the podcast, an easy and simple way is to share it on Facebook or any other social media and tell your friends. You can also go to audibletrial.com/KYHistoryPod and get a free book of your choice. And finally, you can visit patreon.com/KYHistoryPod if you want extra content from us. If you're already a patron, thank you for your support. It means so much to us. All the links I've mentioned are in the description of the podcast, so go check them out. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoy this episode. And remember, if it's not about Kentucky, it ain't worth a hill of beans. To continue the broad form deed, and the exclusive rights of way for any and all railroads, tram roads, haul roads, and other ways, pipelines, telephone, and telegraph lines that may hereafter be located on said land by the parties of the first part, their heirs, representatives, or assigns, or by the party of the second part, its successors or assigns, or by any person or corporation with or without the authority of either of said parties, their or its heirs, representatives, successors, or assigns, and also the right maintain, keep in repair, and operate the same and said railroads, tram roads, haul roads, ways, pipelines, telephone, and telegraph lines, and also the exclusive rights to enter upon said land, and drill thereupon for oil and gas, and to pump for and store the same upon said land, and remove, pipe, and transport the same therefrom, and to use and operate the said land and surface thereof, and any and all parts thereof, including the right to use, divert, dam, and pollute water courses thereon, in any and every manner that may, by party of the second part, its successors or assigns, be deemed necessary or convenient for the full and free exercise and enjoyment of any and all the property, rights, and privileges hereby bargained, sold, granted, or conveyed, including but not limiting to that of drilling, mining, pumping, and therefrom removing or otherwise utilizing the said pipe, telegraph, and telephone lines, right-of-way, roads, ways, timber, coal, minerals, slate, oil, gas, saltwater, clay, iron, ore, mines, stone, and the subterranean substances and products thereof, and any and all other property and rights hereby bargained, sold, granted, or conveyed, and for the transportation therefrom of said articles. And also the right to build, erect, alter, repair, maintain, and operate upon said land, and at its option to therefrom remove any and all houses, shops, buildings, tanks, inclines, tipples, dams, coke ovens, store, and warerooms, and machinery, and mining, and any and all equipment that may be party of the second part, its successors or assigns, be deemed necessary or convenient for the full and free exercises and enjoyment of any and all the property, rights, and privileges hereby bargained, granted, sold, or conveyed. Welcome back to The Land Between the Meadows. That is another excerpt from the broad form deed written and created by John C.C. Mayo. Again, you can connect to us at KYHistoryPod for any comments, or email us at thelandbetweenthemeadows@gmail.com. With me again is Mr. Pope.
I keep thinking, as you tell this story, how is this applicable to powerful people today? Was he different? Was he extraordinary? Or is there a pattern that we see throughout history that men who become powerful economically also become politically powerful as well? And why is that? Is it because they want to make a better world? Or is it because they want to control the world?
Or fill their pockets?
Fill their pockets or control the world to the way that they want, direction it to go, to use the resources that they're invested in, and so forth. And I think probably the answer is some are both. I think some are idealists that get into politics that want a better world. Some are just there to grab what they can from society. Some are there just for a power trip so they can be powerful. Some are combinations of all three.
I agree, yeah. And that's, we'll talk about that more in a second. Because talking about John C.C. Mayo's death, he of course is, he literally dies at the height of his life, at the height of his power, the height of his influence, however you want to put it. He dies in the middle of it. He gets sick, and he kind of works through it, gets rehabilitated, or recovers, and then he goes on this trip to Europe. And on this trip to Europe, of course, it's not a vacation per se. He's talking to people from Europe, trying to get them to invest as well. But he comes back, and after he comes back, a few months later, he gets sick again, and it's like it hits him hard. He's sent to Cincinnati, where they have specialists, and he is given all this treatment. They bring in doctors to New York. His condition is bad. However, he is able to get. I don't exactly know what it's called or how to talk about or how to describe it. I see it as like a blood transfusion. His brother gives blood, and he puts it in. They put it in there because they assumed, I believe, that he just had bad blood, or I can't. In medical in 1914, 13 is different than it was now. But basically, he gets some of his blood. He gets a blood transfusion from his brother, and that kind of lifts him up a little bit. He gets he kind of recovers a little bit, but not to where he can go home or anything to that nature. They then send him to. They get a whole train. They send a whole train to get him from the hospital in Cincinnati and takes him to New York, to where they can have all these specialists work on him and try to. Save his life, basically. And of course, he has all this money. It's a big thing. He's got this influence. They're trying their best to save his life, but however, it all falls in, and he dies of Bright's disease, which is a chronic disease for the kidneys. His kidneys were, I assume, kind of shutting down, and kidneys, like many organs in your body, are kind of important, and so forth. So he up and just dies during all this stuff. Of course, his Alky's
sitting pretty.
Alky is sitting pretty. Of course, she's mourning and all that kind of stuff. And
She's up in Eastern Kentucky sitting on a case of beer.
Well, it's all mine now. But she was there when he died. His family was there. His father and mother were still alive when all this happened. Which, of course, they had bukus of money as well, right, because of his influence. His son was John C.C. Mayo Jr., which an interesting thing I saw. There's a quote in the book that was from his son, who said that he never saw his dad. He's because he worked so much. He was he did not.
Right.
He worked so much of these, and to me, when you're looking at it, that's the biggest travesty of it all. Is his son. Don't say that he didn't interact, and there wasn't time that they weren't together. But he was so busy,
he didn't have time for
that he didn't have time. Yeah. And there's no quote or anything from his daughter, but that was what his son kind of said. And
a little insight into his life.
Yeah. And then you have, like you were saying, you were saying Alky was up there with him in Frankfurt, but now she was always at home with the son,
the kids.
And Alky, quick bit about her. She gets remarried to a man in Florida. And she tries her best to prolong John C.C. Mayo's legacy in a way, but nothing really I think she fails at that. I talk to people, and I've talked to people from Eastern Kentucky and say, "Do you know who John C. Mayo is?" Most of them, no, I have no idea. And talk to people from all around Kentucky, they don't know who he is, and that's not a slight to anybody. To me, I feel it more of a slight to like the educational system. They should be learning about this guy who did all these things. But the big question, and you hinted at it earlier about somebody who is driven entrepreneurially, politically, however, and they gain this wealth. And that's the question that lies with John C. Mayo. What would have happened? If he hadn't have suddenly died, would he have been able to build up more in Eastern Kentucky? Would he have been able to, because he just hit his peak, like he just got the things he wanted. He was just at that moment getting them. Would he have done more then? Would he have been able to lift up Eastern Kentucky? Or was his death the final straw for Eastern Kentucky? And then all these other people come in, outsiders come in that didn't really care about Kentucky, the people or they were literally just there for the dollar. I mean, you could argue that John C. Mayo was only there for the dollar, but he did have those motivations of wanting to better Eastern Kentucky.
He was one of their own.
Yeah, he was one of their own. He was from there. He wanted to build it up, and that's the one thing I guess that kind of hampers, to me, his legacy is he died right in the middle of it. And if he had stayed alive, it could have changed things. It could have made it better. I don't know. That's the thing. And the big theme from John C. Mayo is, in my opinion, you should always be putting that best foot forward, because you don't know when you could end it.
That's right. He was called the Napoleon of Finance.
Wow. Oh.
And money does a lot of things, but it doesn't do everything. And it's hard to get a lot of money without stepping on the backs of poor or the downtrodden, or taking advantage of people for your own benefit. And I think when we look at modern day and we look at that broad form deed and we look at strip mining, we look at all these things, and then he really starts getting a dirty name. Because he, these deeds that he set up, these legal agreements that ran people out of their farms and homes and decimated the beauty of Eastern Kentucky, and oftentimes without reclaiming the land and all this. I mean, there was a lot of money made, but like you said, where did it go? A lot of it went to, outside investors and not people that were local. People locally were mainly, they didn't get rich.
No.
They didn't. They just had, and they had their counties, they had their water spoiled. And then we get into the coal mining. I guess we have to get into that, and the unions and the treatment of the working people, and oh my goodness!
And we're getting into
deep stuff, and yet he was kind of the thing that started all this.
He did, yeah.
He promoted coal, and he got it going in Eastern Kentucky, the coal situation.
Yeah. That's the thing I would, that really kind of paints a bad picture. Is he basically started the oppression, if you want to, I think that's a good term, of the people of Eastern Kentucky.
He did.
And, could he have done more if he'd stayed alive?
Right.
Probably, but he didn't.
Right.
So, that's the way it is, you got him, and whatever his intentions may have been, they were not realized.
And you look at the resources of Eastern Kentucky, where coal is certainly, especially in those coal regions, is a very, important resource in a region that has lots of resources, but, are they marketable?
We talked in the last episodes about like capitalism and so forth. And I'll say this: at the core of capitalism, the principles are there. You work hard, you get paid. You come up with an invention, people want it, you get paid. And this goes back to what we said earlier. Your intentions. And I don't want to. I'm not trying to paint a broad stroke or brush or whatever the saying is.
Right.
Because there are people who've made plenty of money and given loads of it back.
I guess.
Some of them. There's a few out there somewhere, surely, maybe. But
I think, talking about capitalism, he's a capitalist, obviously.
oh yeah, gosh, yeah, he was.
He was out about making money. He certainly wasn't a socialist.
No, definitely not.
He didn't send all of his money and set up systems where people could benefit. And, he donated a little bit here and a little bit there, and he hired some people and got some money circulating.
Yeah.
But he certainly he was self-centered.
Did he create jobs? Sure, he created jobs, but that's the point I'm wanting to get at here. He may have had these big intentions for the better of the region, but what typically happens when somebody starts making this big money, you get to that point to where you could pay your employees or the people more.
Right.
And this is Eastern Kentucky coal, 100%. But instead, if you're making $1 million and you decide not to pay your employees as much, you can make $1 million more.
You know what's so confusing about this though is as you talk, and I'm thinking, think about the regionalism of this. How did people in Eastern Kentucky feel about John C. Mayo?
Yes.
And how did people of the Bluegrass feel about John C. Mayo? Maybe people of the Bluegrass even today, they look at Eastern Kentucky like these coal regions have been ruined, have been wasted. The people are really stupid and ignorant for doing that. And yet maybe there are people in these pockets that brag about the money they've gotten, from that. So it kind of depends on perspective and regional of how you look at yourself. And I'm sure there's people in Eastern Kentucky that say that, that they weren't treated fairly and that their resources were squandered and ruined and spoiled, neglected, and so forth. But just lots of different perspectives. It's almost political.
Yeah, it is, and
it depends on how you see things.
Yep, the shoes you're standing in.
That's
right. And that's the thing. Over time, I would say the Eastern Kentucky people of Eastern Kentucky definitely feel wronged.
I think they do
the many
too.
protests of over time with the coal mining,
because so much of the money left the region.
Exactly, and that's the one big point is you had these outside people come in. These capitalists, and they would take
the railroads.
They would take the money, and they would. They would be rich. They'd be filthy rich.
They'd be filthy.
And then you're working in the coal mine.
You're doing all the work.
You're breaking your back. You're getting your black lung.
That's right.
You're dying early. You're working your whole life
for the country store.
Yeah, from age 15 to 62.
It sure is good, man.
Living high, boys.
Living high, boys.
Living high on the hog here. Can't breathe. The back's killing me.
Can't even drink a beer on Saturday night.
And that's I guess the point is that's the sin of capitalism. We said that. And, there's good intention, and it's people. There's plenty of business owners that have a business. They've got great employees. They pay their employees.
I guess there's good intentions. I wouldn't go
yeah.
Self-centered intentions.
But like in this case with John C. Mayo, he was a capitalist through and through.
Yes, he was.
There was no denying it.
Right.
There was no going back.
He did. You have to give him a little because he did have vision.
He did have a vision.
Yeah.
And his vision fell short.
Yeah.
But his actions, was in my opinion, caused the downfall of Eastern Kentucky. After reading it, I was like, you can reading this book. There's kind of things you can pick out to say, hey, he did have good intentions, but still overall. He sold out Eastern Kentucky. That's my final.
Wonder what Eastern Kentucky would be like today, Appalachia, if it didn't have coal.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it is anyway.
Poor.
It is anyway more.
Poor. Poorer.
Poorer.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think it would be just as poor as it is now. I mean,
probably. I think so.
What would have changed?
I agree. I don't know if everyone would, but I agree with you.
I mean, well, and we go back to the thought of you're only poor if you are comparing yourself to somebody else.
That's right.
Well,
that's
and I don't think people of Eastern Kentucky
that's
at any
partly true.
Well, yeah. I don't think people of Eastern Kentucky ever, there's their way of life, and
right.
I mean they had their own. I mean it's its own culture.
Subsistent living to a certain extent in some areas. I was thinking of my trip up in Morgan County, and I was thinking of these things exactly. And people that had farms had 150 acres and had some bottom land, a lot of timber, and they raised their own feed and fuel and took care of their animals. And even when machinery came about, they didn't invest in machinery.
Say that again.
It was a lawnmower.
Say they didn't invest in machinery.
They didn't invest in machinery.
Yeah. Now
The lawnmower that went by. That was a cue.
That was the cue. Yeah.
Cue.
Yeah.
Help us
They're
remember.
mowing out here.
Yeah,
somewhere.
they're mowing out here.
But now, and just for the audience, where is Morgan County, or just for the listeners, where is Morgan County located?
West Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get to. You can go up the Bluegrass Parkway and cut over, or you can go up I-64, I guess it is, towards Ashland.
Yeah.
And go by Cave Run Lake.
Mm-hmm.
We went up one way and came down the other, and then cut across to West Liberty. West Liberty is a small little town and very neat, very well kept.
Eastern Kentucky.
Oh yeah, and I mean really well kept.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful little town.
Yeah.
And a lot of pride.
Oh yeah.
A lot of pride up there. I mean, you think, oh, it's just, the things they have are simple, but they're done well and with thought.
Yeah.
I like it.
And just talking about Eastern Kentucky, and if you haven't, what you probably have if you're listening, you probably listened to the interview with Ashley York, who's from Pikeville and did the Hillbilly documentary. And you should, there's a lot of pride in Eastern Kentucky,
There really is.
there should be.
I couldn't get over talking about mowing, just at West Liberty, the town itself.
Mm-hmm.
Every yard looked like a golf course.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't find, I can't keep my yard.
I know, I gotta go
call
mow.
the police on me, I guess. But, it's just unbelievable. The neatness and cleanliness and fresh paint and mowed yards and flower gardens. And, what they have is just so well taken care of with such pride.
Yeah.
It shocked me.
Yeah. The neighborhood watch is going to be on your...
Yeah, I'm sure. They're already there.
You can't be raising them chickens here.
No, they can't. No, they can't. Hound dogs and chickens. No, can't do it.
But and just the need of a resurgence, I guess, in like small town Eastern Kentucky. There's a lot of good places in Eastern Kentucky.
Money can't buy everything, as we all know.
No.
And good friends and a good, safe environment where there's low crime and not a lot of drugs and ignorance going on. Gosh, it says a lot.
That's what you need.
You don't need big fancy cars and homes.
You don't need your McDonald's on every corner.
McDonald's on every corner. If you got good friends and clean air, fresh air, mountain air.
That's another thing. Getting in, harping on John C.C. Mayo is like just environmentally.
Oh yeah.
The mountaintop removal.
Oh gosh.
Is just.
Sad.
Man, I hate it. You get all these. We've been to Pine Mountain plenty of times, and you go to any peak. In Eastern Kentucky, and you look out and you just see all these beautiful rolling mountains. Mm-hmm. And if you go into some places, though, you see the mountaintops. Just gone, taken out, and it's that's
ain't coming back.
Yeah, that's the nature environmentalist, I guess, in me talking.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, we'll
like John Prine, down by Green River where Paradise used to lay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, my son, you're too late in asking. Mr. Peabody's Coal Company's done taking it away.
There you go. And there's a lot of good.
We got
songs.
money.
Coal
We got
songs.
money,
We're
man.
making the money.
We're making the money.
Well, do you know the lady that sang? It was during the coal protest in the 1970s. Hazel Dickens. That's who I was thinking about. She sang. A bunch of coal, Black Lung. I wonder. It was Bloody Harlan. That might have been the name of the song too. That was during the ones. But she sang a bunch of songs. But she was one that a lot of songs. Tyler Childers. A bunch of them have good songs about coal and coal mining in general. But yeah, that's a coal miner's grave. That's another one.
Mm-hmm. That'd be good to play that music right now.
It would.
If you could, an indoor thing.
So yeah, Hazel Dickens. She wrote a lot of songs about coal mining and big protests and all that. And we'll have some episodes about
protests,
Bloody Harlan and protests. Basically every 1930s and 1920s, basically every just almost 10 years there was I don't want to say every 10 years, but every so often there was protest
Unrest.
In the mountains. And it was the people. And, I mean, you talk about...
There has been recently, too, those companies that quit and wouldn't pay the miners.
Yes. And, I mean, you could compare it to,
They stopped the trains.
Whatever your opinion may be on protesting, protesting now, that are going on currently in our state, in our country. Neighborhood. Were no different than protests back then. There were people wanting change. And I mean, if you want change, you kind of got to fight for it. And I don't mean literally fight for it, but,
that's right.
You had to fight for it. And that's what these coal miners did in Harlan in 1930 and in 1970 and even, like you said, a year ago, they protested when, and that's what happens when people feel oppressed. They eventually have to stand up for what they want and what they need. I mean,
right.
It's basic human things. But
democracy.
Yeah, but anything else to add real quick here before we go, Mr. Pope? Maybe what's coming up next? John G. Fee.
Yes.
We want to.
Yes, Berea.
We're talking about
abolitionism.
We're going
helping
from
the mountain people.
We're going from one side to the other with
That's
John
right.
C.C. Mayo, and I don't know why everybody's got the name John, but John C.C. Mayo to John G. Fee, polar opposites.
Yes.
Polar opposites, and really helps paint a picture of Kentucky.
Right. When somebody who did something for the people.
Oh yes, and I mean, I read his biography. Or autobiography. Is it an autobiography when you write it yourself?
Yes.
His autobiography, and man, I mean, you talk about the things he endured.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we're just trying to tease you a little bit about what's to come, but a very, very interesting and
great guy.
And, awesome Kentuckian. One of the
But
best.
he started, never died. That's the thing. John C. Mayo.
That's true.
But Berea College has continued for generations to help people.
Yes. Yes.
And the ideas set before
and we'll
internationally.
We'll get into just the whole makeup of Berea College. I mean, it falls in suit to John G. Fee.
And it kind of goes along with Pine Mountain Settlement School, Redbird Academy.
Yep.
Different places in eastern Kentucky that are still established that have tried to help people.
Yep. So with that being said, you can connect to us at KY History Pod on Facebook or Twitter. You can email us, thelandbetweenthetomato@gmail.com. And you can also find our YouTube channel, the Kentucky History Channel, for some short videos on Kentucky. And you can also try out audibletrial.com/KYHistoryPod to get a free Audible book if you would like, if that's your thing.
Or you can enroll in Crab Orchard Elementary School and hear the teachers firsthand.
Firsthand, exactly. We don't know exactly what teaching is going to look like in the next few months.
We guarantee we'll talk about Kentucky.
Yes, we will. We will definitely talk about Kentucky. And if you want to and feel the need, you can check out patreon.com/KYHistoryPod if that's something you're interested in. With that being said, we are going to let Hazel Dickens take us out with Which Side Are You On?